Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, July 19th, 2022, 2024. And this is episode 930 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I just had a weird thing happen. So I got a little bit weirdly distracted when I was saying that. So uh, what happened is apparently Twitter X has decided you have to pay a fee in order to use their live streaming. So we're no longer live streaming on Twitter. And I keep forgetting not to put them in my live stream when we live stream recorded episodes. Anyway, for those of you one step closer, welcome to the live stream. Those of you joining us live today, if you have questions, do me a favor, put the first word in all caps. I try really hard to see it, but the monitor is way over there and sometimes I don't see things. So if you do that, or if you have a comment you really want me to notice, that's the best way to do it. I may not respond to it right away. I try to work those in logically as the show goes, because of course we have people on the audio podcast listening as well who can't see what y'all are doing. Anyway, here's what we're going to talk about today. I have fire blight in the orchard / food forest, and it's particularly bad on a 15-year-old tree. So that's a thing. And it was funny because when I saw it, I'm like, I think that's fire blight. And I sent a picture to Nick Ferguson and then had a consultation with him. Let's see if you are, ooh, weird. Let's see if you are in the, you're right, in the screen. He looked irritated.
Just stay like this.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so we've got fire blight. We've got sort of an update on what forage we're going to start looking for. Martinson family, welcome to the live stream. We're going to talk about some harvest meals that I've been doing that will be good, and one of them was good, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including money that we made from hip campers this week. Whoop, whoop. So that helps the budget. Porterhouse and Teal, welcome to the show. Porterhouse, I have fire blight. It sucks. Anyway, we're gonna win the battle with the fire blight, but I also think I brought it on myself by planting apples and pears here. We'll get into that and more. Before we do that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and it is the Escapeology class at the Self-Reliance Festival, like right before it, at wow, boy, I just rebooted in my head. Does that ever happen to you?
Like every day.
Anyway, Escapeology, Sunny Puzikas at Self-Reliance Festival, October 3rd. And this is not it, but this is it. I'm going to show for those of you on the live stream, you can see it. So it's here. Fight Hacker Escapeology, and it's a hands-on class, so you'll learn escape and control, hands-on practice, key skills. I am sure he will talk about ways to not find yourself in a situation, but this is a class that any fitness level can take, so don't be scared off by the badass title of the class. But it will be outside, probably under a tent if it's raining, that sort of thing. And I think it's going to be really important for those who are interested in learning more about how to get out of situations to do it. Do bring eye and ear protection. It's $275 on October 3rd, an all-day class. It includes lunch. So check that out at selfreliancefestival.com. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. The first sponsor is agoristtaxadvice.com. He has a webinar coming up on making money with real estate, which can be really, really cool. And I wanted to show his website to you as part of this, but when I went to his website, it takes you straight to the sign up page. So if you want to sign up for that, just go to agoristtaxadvice.com. It is a free webinar that you can sign up for about maximizing your tax savings with real estate, because when you keep more of your money in your pocket by using legal methods to do it, you end up more ahead. And even if you don't have real estate yet, something like this, if you think you might get into rentals or something else, is a great way to get an overview. So that's over at agoristtaxadvice.com. Our second sponsor of today's show is John Pugliano and the Wealth Studying Podcast. This is a great way to build investing literacy by listening to a podcast while you're doing other things to make your life better, pay off your debt, and be ready to invest. Check out John Pugliano's podcast. They're about 15 minutes long. Love them. If you go back to the early ones, you'll learn about his principles of investing, which I think was a really helpful series, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So check that out, thewealthstudypodcast.com. With that, we're going to go into the show because the reason you're here is what? It's to hear stuff from us, right? So, Tactical, how'd this week go?
Slow and rough.
Slow and rough. It was hot today, this week, and then it was not hot anymore. And we had hip campers in on the like 4 hottest days of the month. We were up above 100 here, and it was humid. And I was never so appreciative of air conditioning as I was this week. And having that new mini split in was really cool.
Yeah.
And Nighthawk actually like did a whole service clean on it a week before all the stuff hit, which was great.
Yeah.
So I didn't have clogged filters. I didn't have water running down my wall from a clogged condensation hose or anything like that. Our friend Dawn Gorham did, though. In the cannery, she came back and there was all this like wall damage from a fitting had pulled out on her mini split, which was a bummer. But I mean, the good thing is it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it looks like she got some damage to her drywall. Pack Rat, welcome to the live stream. So, would I survive at my homestead without air conditioning?
Yeah. You'd just be spending a lot of time by the creek.
Yeah, it would be hot. And actually, my house being built into the ground does a pretty good job of not getting ultra hot. It does not do a good job of staying not humid, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also, I think, partially because of the ground contact. So that's the big picture for the week. So let's go into one of our segments. That sound good?
Okay.
Are you finding forage?
Not really.
Do you ever find forage?
Sometimes.
So the forage he finds the most are
mushrooms.
And then he sends me a picture and says, "What's this?" Right?
Usually.
Yeah. I think I found an oyster mushroom, snap. And so that's super helpful because then when I'm not out and about looking for mushrooms, we still get mushrooms. Haven't seen any mushrooms lately though, have you?
No.
Next week is the week for that.
Okay.
We're going to get a lot of rain next week unless butterflies fart and the clouds go away, which has been known to happen. But Spiky Mikey says it's going to rain a lot next week.
Okay. I'd believe him.
Yeah, he's a pretty good weather guy. So with that, we may get some blooms of mushrooms in the woods. So keep your eyes peeled.
Okay.
Because the sooner we get them, the better they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So no mushrooms. I mean, we could get turkey tail right now. Nothing really new right now. It's been dry and even the weeds were looking sad. Like he said, the perilla looked wilted. So
yeah, when the perilla looks like death, then like everybody else is just screwed.
Yeah, the perilla is the weed that will endure, although it's technically an edible weed. I just don't like it everywhere. And it propagates as well or better than mint. Like I think I might want to do a perilla mint bed to see who wins next year.
Like perilla is one of those weeds that like the places that I have that are doing really well with grass, if I don't mow it, perilla will come in and take over.
That's true. And if you overgraze it, you get perilla left because they eat everything but the perilla.
Yeah.
So that's a sure sign you're overgrazing a pasture. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
We're overgrazing a goat pasture right now. Empty, welcome to the live stream. Yarrow is looking stressed, and I'm hoping this rain will make it feel a little better because I would like to do a yarrow extract. We got the yarrow plants put in by Carrie Brown from Strong Roots Resources, and one of them's not doing good at all, and then doing well at all. I just used improper English. And then the other one is like blooming and 2 feet tall and looked really stressed, and I haven't looked at it since the rains came the other day. We got a lot of rain here all at one time and everything just looked better yesterday, but I was concentrating on the fire blight problem yesterday and I'll be concentrating on it right after the show again today. So I think I'll finish that out before it rains again this afternoon. If it rains, it might rain this afternoon. So if I finish the fire blight project, it absolutely will rain because it will wash everything off that I'm putting on the trees to help the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way that goes. So that's it for forage. And there are, I mean, I'm keeping my eye on things like the Jerusalem artichokes and there's like, this is an epic, unless something like bad happens with drought, this is going to be an epic pawpaw year. I have more pawpaws out than I've ever seen in the forest.
Yeah.
And we don't have any actual pawpaw trees planted on my property that I'm aware of, unless they planted themselves.
There might be
one. Yeah, there might be one. But I do continue to throw pawpaws out in the yard from time to time, hoping that they'll grow in places I think they'd like to be. But in the forest around me, on the edge, on the north facing slopes, there are pawpaws. So when I'm out and about, I see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to be shaking some trees in September. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
We might be doing an invitation only green chili day too at somebody else's house in September.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it's only 2 weeks before Self-Reliance Festival, so I'm just going to day trip it if that happens.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I used to always do an annual green chili day where we roast green chilies and make all sorts of green chili dishes, and it's delicious. And I stopped doing it a couple years ago because of the stacking up of fall events and it just being too much. So we may do a mini version of that this year. We'll see. We'll keep you posted. And Angie says Carrie is awesome. We're going to see Carrie tomorrow.
Yep.
He was at the East Tennessee Homesteaders Alliance event festival thingy, and he let people sign up for free tickets for Self-Reliance Festival. We did a drawing there and a drawing from the SOE party for people to get 2 free passes. So he's dropping that all off, and we will announce the winners on the Self-Reliance Festival channel today, as a matter of fact. So 2 people may have gotten free passes, which is awesome. Okay, next segment is livestock. The ducks are molting. That's all I have to say about that. What that means is not as many duck eggs. We got 3 duck eggs yesterday, though, right?
Yeah, I did not look this morning.
Yeah, and I totally gave them away to the hip campers because I was so excited that I gave them away to somebody else rather than used them.
Yeah.
Do you approve?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't think they'd had duck eggs before, so I thought that would be fun for them. We may have rats.
Yeah, I'm going to do a round of putting some stuff out for them.
So, my elderly cat, who is not around here, he's the one you hear on the podcast from time to time going in the background. He's 17 years old. He's pushing 17 and a half now.
Like 94 and people years.
And he just gets disoriented and walks in and starts talking. And then if I say his name, he'll be like, "Oh, that's my name." And then he'll shut up. He does this at any time of night and day. Mm-hmm. But he was also the best mouser on the property / ratter. And we have noticed that he is now in his 90s and no longer hunting every so often. He wanders up with a rodent. It's like, "Here you go. I still got it, Mom." But now he's losing hair on one side of his body. We don't know why. And I took him in actually to get some blood work done, and they don't know why. And they said, well, we can give him steroids, but it's not fleas. It's not anything in his blood work specifically. What he had a mole. That's not cancer. And I decided that at 94 years old, you don't need to be put on more drugs or any drugs, really.
Yeah.
It's probably just because he's old and hot, and it's the side he lays on the most. So, and there's not like ringworm or something either. Like, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like ringworm or something else making him lose hair, or mange or some other skin infection. He doesn't have a skin infection. So he's a funny looking cat now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple elderly animal issues happening around here. That's what happens. So Donna says, I'm having no luck with any peppers my first season here. Donna, are you in Tennessee or where are you? Because peppers are great, but I tend to have more pepper success in August than July.
Yeah,
August and September and October seem to be more the pepper time. Like, people I know who are like gifted with peppers have peppers right now. How are your peppers?
Mine are doing okay, but I'm still in the phase of, why are you not exploding yet? Oh, it's still too early.
Yeah.
they're mine are almost getting to that point to where they're about to start blowing up.
How many grounding rods went in last week?
Oh, Cookville. Yeah. How many grounding rods?
Yeah.
1, 2, 4.
Four
Well,
grounding rods
3
went
and a
in.
half.
And then what got hooked up to the grounding rods?
New fence charger.
How many joules is the new fence charger?
12 continuous.
Like it zaps all the time?
Zaps. Well, it's got 16 stored joules and 12 continuous output. It still pulses,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you're not aware, the pulsing is a safety feature built into all the fence chargers, so that if an animal locks up on the fence,
They
when
can
it
get off the
stops,
fence.
then they can get off of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're a turkey and you just get off on electroshock therapy.
Okay, that's a different story we don't need to tell right now, though.
Okay.
But, so what does that mean, 12 continuous? Is it 16, then 12, then 16, then 12? Or is
No,
it...
it's just there's some extra stored joules in there as far as I know.
Okay.
But the continuous output of it is going to be 12.
Is that a wallop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we putting such a strong fence charger in my property where I'm inclined to accidentally touch wires? Is it so that you can put hidden cameras around and get video of me screaming?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I actually might put a camera up just so that I can watch those rams get nailed, because at some point I know it's going to happen.
So the boys are coming over here because we don't want them fertilizing the girls right now, which isn't usually off what happens in the summer. They don't usually go into estrus in the summer, but just in case, I don't want any young impregnated. Plus,
yeah,
they're getting into the dog. They're doing what rams do. They get into more trouble.
Yeah.
And so they're coming over here, and he wanted to make sure their first experience with the fence here was a memorable one, even though they have a fence over there that they've been testing.
Yeah.
And the one over there, even though it's a 12 joule too, right?
Yeah.
But
it's
on a battery, and I feel like it doesn't hit as hard.
It's on a battery, and it's also, I'm really curious to wonder how those high voltage lines
impact it. Yeah, because all the problems are when they're under those lines.
Yeah. And so I need to have a conversation with somebody very specific.
I think Pat Rat sent me a whole email about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to talk to Pat Rat. Yeah, I can pull that one back up. So that's happening. We haven't moved the rabbits yet. We haven't decided where to move the rabbits yet. We should totally move the rabbits soon.
Yeah.
And that's because we have a pretty big list of things, and he hasn't been mobile this week. So, so it's sort of been like, make sure things don't die week. And then we are also feeding the dogs once a day, separate from the sheep, because of the rams getting into the doghouse problem. But today we have a special visitor coming to the pasture. Do you know who it is?
Yes.
We have a mobile veterinarian coming out to give the dogs the dog shots.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so we have to bring the dogs down the hill so the vet doesn't have to go up the hill. But I finally found somebody who would, for $45 extra, which is not small money, but worth every penny, not to have to bring the dogs somewhere, come and do sort of the annual exam and that sort of thing, which I definitely wanted to do this year. So,
yeah. And
so who knows how many hours that'll take us?
I don't think it'll be that bad. They're going to come down the hill with all manner of joy and glee. It's going to be getting them back up that'll be the
I feel like we should defrost a rabbit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I have a single rabbit, unless you've already used the single rabbit.
We used that one.
Okay. I have guts.
Yeah, we'll find something.
Yeah, I have offal that we could use. We find that raw treats work really well to get Max to go Miles to go where we need him to go. And then Max kind of goes wherever Miles is anyway.
Yeah, or wherever you go.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I'll be over there walking up the hill with some dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have gotten Miles fairly good about following me on the four-wheeler.
That's good. That's good. So let's go back to this pepper question because our next segment is grow, and Donna's having trouble with peppers her first season here in Cookeville, Tennessee, which is a very similar climate to ours. And I would say a couple things. One, you might want to try some 20 or 30% shade cloth over that if it's getting direct sun all day long. Because even though
Yeah.
peppers are, they grow well in the desert and whatnot, I find that when I have a little bit of shade over them, just mottled shade, it works better.
Yeah, and that's the ones that I have. I've had to move a couple of the ones I have in containers onto the deck, which gets partial shade in the afternoon, and they're 2 or 3 times the size of what's in my AP.
The other,
And
okay, go ahead.
they have also been abused in the fact that they started drying out because they weren't getting enough water, whereas the ones in the AP have a constant access to a steady level of water. So you would expect that situation to be flipped, and the only variable there is the amount of sun.
Yeah. Although peppers are okay when they get dried out a little bit.
Yeah,
'Cause they're
these were
peppers.
dried out way too
Oh,
much.
I
Though.
got you. Fossilized peppers, mummified peppers happened. Is that what
Yeah.
happened? And they came back
Yeah, they're
because they're
coming back,
peppers. Yeah.
and I've got one that needs calcium.
Yeah. So, I could have sprayed that for you yesterday. So the other thing I was going to say is look at like how balanced is your nutrient? What soil are you using this year? It's your first year. Are you using commercial soil? Is it active with soil biology from compost you've made or not? Like any of those things can improve the situation of the pepper. I found I do wood mulch around the base of peppers if I can. And then like it's okay to feed them. And what I learned this year is a lot of times the calcium of all plants in the summer when it's hot, they stop absorbing it through the soil. And so if you don't do a foliar spray with calcium in it, that can cause problems.
Yeah.
They just like you can give them a little boost, but I would look at like are the leaves telling you something? Is it low in iron, low in calcium, any of those things? And really doing a calcium magnesium spray with some Garrett juice or some compost extract or something like that isn't going to be a bad move either way.
Yeah.
I tried to get CalMag at Walmart in Cookeville and they did not have it. I ended up having to order some online. And you use like 2 milliliters per gallon of water. It's hardly anything. You can put eggshells around the roots to get calcium, but right now, as hot as it's been, they're not pulling that out of the soil. They're just not. So I guess maybe today they are because it's less hot today. I think it might not be less hot by this afternoon.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's been really hot. But peppers are also made to accept hot. If you think about where they grow natively.
They do well in hot, but there is limitations on everything.
Yeah, Angie says no matter what anyone says, full sun in the north isn't the same as full sun in the south. Yeah, that's 100% true.
Full sun right here is way different than full sun half a mile north or south of us. Just saying.
Okay.
That's the top of a ridge. So yeah, full sun's going to be different there. Full sun's definitely going to be different between here and Maine.
Yeah. So if she says her place is already partial shade, we're pretty much forest. Plants are maybe 4 inches. The rest of the bed seems fine in raised beds. So your peppers are small. I'd feed them. I'd feed them nutrient too of some sort. Like get some liquid kelp. I would do a spray of liquid kelp, CalMag, and put a little Dawn dish soap in after you've mixed everything. Don't do it before you mix things because you end up with a Brady Bunch scale bubble problem. Ask me how I know. Yeah. It's like you put the things in, you go, and you're like, yeah, I knew better than that if I would have just thought about this in advance. And do the foliar spray and see if that helps them. You still have time. It may not be your best pepper year ever, but then next year you might want to get them out sooner or get them started inside sooner. I just sometimes have years where my peppers are sad. Yeah. I added wood vinegar yesterday to the spray just to keep any pests off things in my aquaponics system because something's hitting stuff there besides the caterpillars, or it might be the caterpillars.
Yeah.
So I'll have to go back out there and look. And that tells me that even my plants in my aquaponics system are stressed right now.
Yeah.
And because stressed plants taste delicious to pests.
Yeah.
So anyway, that being said, we have fire blight in the orchard. While I was in California, before I left, I looked at my Asian pear tree, and it was beautiful and had pears all over it, and it was going to be an awesome year. And I came back, and it looks like it's barely alive right now, and all of the fruit has rotted on the branch.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we're going to save the tree. So I said, self, that looks like fire blight. I took a picture and I did what I always do, and I texted Nick Ferguson, because I'm not like your number one expert on how to handle fruit trees and blights and all of that. Because usually what I do is plant the tree and ignore it, and it either lives or dies. So he ended up calling me and saying that looks like fire blight, and I'm like, I have it in other trees. Like, we had some cicada damage on the trees this year, which isn't usually an issue, but my trees are pretty young, so it may have caused some, issues. But the problem with fire blight is it's so infectious that like a fly will land on the tree that has it, go to another tree that doesn't have it, and that's all it takes to spread it.
Yeah.
So he said, you need to cut the dead stuff off. And I'm like, I don't even, like, it's all dead on that one pear tree.
Yeah. I was halfway thinking about just pollarding that thing, or
it's been pollarded before.
Like, I mean, I was thinking like 4 foot up, just cut the whole top off.
Yeah, and hope it lives.
Yeah, hope.
I was going to ask you to do that too after I realized what I needed to do, and then we need to treat all of that tree like toxic waste.
Yeah.
It can't. We're not mulching it. We're not putting it back in the system. We're cutting it down into smaller pieces and getting rid of it.
Yeah.
But as I looked around the rest of my food forest, I also have indications of fire blight, particularly on the pears and apples. And I think the reason it came in is that pears and apples don't do well here. And even when we planted those in my food forest, I was like, as much as I love pears, and I do love pears, they don't do well here.
Yeah.
Just because they're hit by the cedar apple rust, and they're hit by, and it's always something. Well, I've had better luck with peach trees doing well. They just don't give me fruit because they get that late frost usually. But now I'm concerned that even putting, apple trees in was just another way to bring disease onto the land.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about when you're deciding which trees to put in. My soil guru friends would say, well, if your soil was right, it wouldn't be an issue. And they're probably right. And apparently my soil's not right. That's something we're constantly working on. So he doesn't want to say anything, right? He can't think of anything that doesn't have an F-bomb in it right now, probably. So here's what we're doing for that. First of all, Nick said the lactobacillus will help fight off bad bacteria on the trees, and fire blight is bad. So I left milk on the counter to ferment itself and grow labs, and it worked. It basically became yogurt like it does. And then I strained out the solids from the liquids, and I ended up with 5 cups of lactobacillus, maybe 6 cups of lactobacillus from half a gallon of milk, whole raw milk. And this method will not probably work if you have pasteurized milk. So then we diluted that at the rate of 1 cup of the whey, basically, to a gallon of water. And I added to that calcium and magnesium, and I added some liquid kelp that you had. Oh, look, balloons. And then I added the wood vinegar. And I just did that because when your trees are not feeling well, pests want to eat them. And then when the pests get on them, they move that stuff around. While I was in the trees, like, I sprayed them all before I did anything. I did that after the rains, because if it rains, then the spray comes off yesterday. And then I started trimming them. But to trim them, what I needed to do was take my shears, cut a branch off that was affected by fire blight, wipe it off with an alcohol soaked rag, dip it in an alcohol thing, wave it around, and then make my next cut. So I only got about half the trees done yesterday before I said this is BS and stopped. And then I took so I got about half the trees all the way done, and I also had to trim out around one tree. We had some tall weeds around it. So what I noticed was not surprising. My apple trees in particular are the most impacted and looked like crap. The younger trees. That one pear tree I didn't do anything to because I was like, I think we just need to cut that down at this point. And I was looking for boils on the bark, but I also noticed a lot of damage where cadmium's coming out, like gooey stuff. I have a video about it. We'll be doing a whole video on what we've done about the orchard that'll go up on YouTube that we've just been kind of shooting every step of the way. And I sent that to Nick too. I'm like, do I need to cut off every branch that has this? Because every branch has this. And he's like, man, those cicadas really did a number. Well, the cicadas did a number, and then the ants became aware that tree cadmium is delicious, like the stuff that oozes out of the tree.
Yeah.
And so there's fire ants all over the tree. And so I was like, do I do anything for the fire ants? He's like, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Like they wouldn't be there if the trees weren't stressed. So unstress your trees and they'll go away.
Yeah.
And it's fire ants. And so I'm probably going to do an orange oil drench on the trees too next time. I think it'll do anything. But I was also reading you can wrap them in double stick tape at the base and the ants can't cross that line. But of course, when it gets wet, then they can cross the line. So I may be getting some Scotch tape. And that's, that's the deal.
Yeah.
So when he saw the scale of the damage, he said, I'd actually also do a neem oil spray eventually. So right now, what we're spraying them with is that preventative way, trimming all the affected areas off, treating that like toxic waste and bagging it up and throwing it away. Like it's getting completely off the property. We're not turning it into mulch or what's that called? Compost. Yeah. We're not composting it. We're not doing any of that. We're just getting it out. So that's happening. And then the peach trees have some very minor impact, and the plum trees have some very minor impact. And I think they're just more resistant to fire blight. And then Porterhouse is saying it's important to select cultivars that have been grafted on fire blight resistant rootstock, which we did do. All of the cultivars we chose were supposed to be blight resistant. But my trees don't read books, apparently. So it may have just been that we had such a wet spring this year. I don't know if that like messed them up, or I don't know. They're also young and they got hit by the cicadas.
We also went from very wet to very dry.
It's always a stressful spring here. So the trees that I have sprayed look really good. They are like, with all the blight off, they look smaller now. and they look good. So I like right after this podcast, I'm getting that done because it might rain this afternoon and I want some time for some of the calcium to absorb in there as well. Packrat says, word is pasteurized milk tends to rot. Yeah. So pasteurized milk, when left on the counter, turns into something that smells like you don't want to eat it. And it's right. You don't want to eat it. But what you can do with pasteurized milk is just add your own culture. You can buy cultures on Amazon from cheesemaking.com. You can get some yogurt and throw it in there, and that's going to give you labs. So, if you need to do this and make your own whey, that's a way you can do it, or you can you can do it. So I just say things and then I hear what I say. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that was a total pun. I was punny and I didn't know it. So that's the fire blight story. We'll keep it documented. Let you know how it goes. There is one tree I'm afraid I'm going to lose in addition to the pear tree we're about to just cut because it's so affected, and it is an apple tree. It was the one last year I thought was dead, and then we went through the winter and then it came back. Yeah. That one looks like absolute crap. And so that one will probably get, like, every time it rains, a coating of diluted neem oil and whey. and we'll just see what happens. And at the end of the day, if that one continues to give me fits, my attitude about my food forest is that tree is coming out, and a cherry tree or a peach tree or a plum tree is going to go there.
Yeah.
Because why would I try to, like, I'm not going to spend the next 15 years of my life struggling to keep apple trees alive. I might put one of those old timey crab apple trees there that appear to not be affected by the blight in the area that Kerry said he could get his hands on. Like, that would actually probably be a really good move.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And it rained and will rain a ton next week. So I'm putting another round of green beans in the upper garden. It has not been super prolific up there, except for that we have gotten squash and spinach coming out of that. But my green beans and beets didn't do well. And then the basil and tomatoes look good up there. The garlic didn't. It wasn't. Well, I planted the garlic late, so it just wasn't as big as it usually gets. And then that's about everything that's up there. I've got some not monsoon Malabar. That's a coffee bean. The Malabar spinach is doing okay. And mostly what's going to come off that garden, assuming the vine borers don't go nuts, is going to be squash this year. Unless this latest row of beans happens. But we'll see. I have not started my inside plants yet for the fall garden. So that has to happen this weekend.
Okay.
Absolutely. I thought I was going to do it last weekend, but I drove to SOE last weekend and back and did SOE things and did tactical response things and came back and did not plant seedlings.
Yeah.
Were you impressed that I managed to cook a good dinner on Sunday night, though? It was the one thing I accomplished. I had pre-planned steaks.
Yeah.
That's like the best post-trip dinner because you're like, throw it in the sous vide and walk away and it's done, right? It's one of my favorite things to do. Pepper plants, unlike Donna, our pepper plants are doing great. My ones in the aquaponics system are under 50% shade cloth. And they're not Jack Spirko scale as tall as a person, but mine are about 2 feet tall now. They have buds on them. They don't have pest problems. They're dark green. They look like they're going to do well. And I, too, got my pepper plants started late, transplanted late, like all of the things. I don't even know what kind of peppers they are.
I think you found Jacks, didn't you?
No, my Jacks didn't germinate this year.
Oh.
So I have to go back to my seed stock and see if I can get a Jacks to germinate and be a winter plant that I keep in the house.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I've been keeping the Jacks jalapeno peppers going, and they just didn't go this year.
Yeah.
And it was because when we did the construction project, I couldn't find my actual seeds I had saved from last year, and they were a couple of years old, and I think they were just too old.
Yeah.
Like nothing. It was like, woo. And then I did find them when I started unpacking more. So that's why I'll probably do winter peppers with that. So we'll see. You can grow your own way. Dean was bursting into song in the comments, and then that just, it started a monster. Martinson family's going to go have breakfast now. Okay, I just said the B word, and there's no dogs staring at me.
No, the big one's conked out.
My Swiss chard has been great. It's been the source of many meals here and will continue to be, but it is going to die before fall. So I want to start some inside Swiss chard plants to go into winter with. And I did that same calcium whey foliar spray. I had some left over yesterday when I finished trimming, because I sprayed everything, trimmed, and then I'm spraying everything again for where the cut places are, just to help prevent spread. And I ended up with about half a gallon of the mixture left yesterday when I was KO and done. And so I went around the garden, and anywhere I saw a plant that seemed like a good vegetable, and I gave it a coating. But I didn't go down the hill and do your pepper plants. Sorry. But yeah, so that's, and we'll see how that does. I have 2 squash plants up the hill that look stressed, and they're the ones that are not under shade cloth. So the thing we know is that this year in particular, shade cloth has been super helpful. And when the new garden goes in, we're putting up posts and the ability to hang shade cloth over that. Yeah. And I already have the shade cloth, so that's not even a thing. Yeah. Ernie says, major CrowdStrike computer outages all around the world. Yep. That is how dependent on technology we are. Actually, Self-Reliance Festival put a meme out today about how that can happen, and I still have a pantry. That came from Don Gorham Homestead, so that was a pretty good one. So I shared it at Self-Reliance Festival too. Next segment is harvest meals. How was yesterday's harvest meal for you?
That's good.
Yeah? What was it?
Well, actually, wait, which one?
Dinner.
Yeah, that one was.
It was delicious, wasn't it?
It was good.
Yeah. It was Chinese food from the takeout restaurant. We dropped the log splitter off at my friend Daniel to get welded because a piece had broken off like 2 years ago and needed to be put back on. And there's tree stumps and logs all over my yard that need to be split. And yeah. So I was driving by the Chinese takeout place on the way home and I was like, you know what's for dinner tonight? Even though I could totally cook something, is Chinese food.
I was good with it last night.
Mushu pork, by the way, without the little pancakes, like straight
That
up
was
as a
good.
saute, is really good. I think that's now on the permanently liked list.
Yes.
Or mushu, whatever. You liked that one.
I could have eaten 2 of those.
Yeah,
by
I went
myself.
in and read the menu and I'm like, what have I not tried?
Yeah.
And so it said mushu pork and it said comes with 6 pancakes. And I'm like, well, we'll see.
Don't care about the pancakes.
Yeah. I tried it with the pancakes just
Pork
for
and cabbage. Legit.
I compared and contrasted.
I did not.
I did. If you wanted to like eat it, like hand eat it, you could totally put it in lettuce wraps too, and it'd be delicious. Like
Yeah.
lettuce leaves. But I've also been using the smoker. I've been talking this whole podcast way more than you.
Yeah.
I always talk more than him, but like way more than him this time. I was just like going through my notes. I'm hitting it hard today. It's the third cup. I've had 3 cups of coffee today.
Well, there's part of the problem.
Yeah. And I keep going off camera, which Letty's going to find annoying when we start making shorts out of this episode. But yeah, Ernie says make sure you have cash on hand. If you're a prepper, you have cash on hand. It kind of depends. Like today, it looks like I'm going to get canning tomatoes for the weekend without any cash at all and without using a card. But we'll tell you that story later. I have a great way to do it. But the smoker saves me on AC. So I'm not having to run my air conditioner all the time. I just run it when it gets hot in here, which on 100 degree days that do not cool off becomes kind of all the time.
Yeah.
And I just run it on dehumidify most of the time. I don't even do the cooling unless it's really bad in here. But when you cook outside, that puts all that heat outside. And outside heat is good. So like the way I plan meals on Sundays, I go into the freezers and I pull everything out and I put it in a big thing to defrost in my fridge. And then Monday, I'm like, crap, it's not defrosted yet. And we have steak because I can just cook that from frozen if I need to in the sous vide with some spices. And then by Tuesday, something has defrosted usually. And so I did that this week and only one thing was defrosted by Tuesday to smoke. But today I'm smoking enough for 3 meals, which is a tri-tip roast and one pork roast that was so big I cut it in half and it's 2 pork roasts. And that's just going outside in the smoker. It'll go for a few hours. I'll check temps and then I actually bring the pork in to cool in the fridge and we'll reheat that tomorrow. We're having the tri-tip roast tonight. But all of that it's super easy to do. If you just get up in the morning and have 15 minutes, you can start something like that and then it cooks itself. And the other thing is it's keeping the heat outside. And then as far as side dishes, I just plan those based on what is on hand. So we've had a lot of sautés this week. We've had salads from cucumbers primarily, and I have cabbage. And then I've been making sauces.
Yeah. Those have been good.
Yeah, so the sauces are good. In fact, today's announcement of tomatoes is going to make another kind of sauce happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we're just sort of eating off of here. I don't go outside and harvest every day for what we're eating. I love having time in the afternoon at 3:00 where I can go around and just get whatever. And that's what's going to be for dinner and then work out at 4 and then cook at 5 and then eat at 5:30. When that all comes together, it's great. But what keeps happening is I get phone calls because with the things going on in my life, I get phone calls in the middle of that process and then it derails. And then I want to fit the workout in every day anyway. And I do, and then I cook, and then we eat at 6 or 6:30 sometimes. But it just depends. But that also means sometimes I'm like, okay, I didn't get the harvesting done, so I'm going to harvest tonight for tomorrow or in the morning for later today and just do the best I can. So that's been going pretty well. And as I said, mostly Swiss chard, and we have a really banging sage plant.
Yeah.
And the occasional squash is coming off now, the summer squash. I haven't had any zucchini yet.
Yeah, that sage plant's always done really well, and I'm really hoping that I've got a cutting off of that looks like it's doing really well, even though it's been utterly neglected. And if that makes it through the winter, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I have 2 cuttings taken off of it for Sage's grave because Sage should have sage plants on her grave.
Yeah.
And the ones I had there died, and I realized why when I went over and was like looking for the flowers that usually come up that aren't going to come up this year. So we're going to put a bunch of compost on her grave in the fall, and I'm going to transplant sage over there to sage probably in September.
Yeah,
that's my timeline for that. But to do that, I definitely started rooting the sage plants from the sage plant now. So anyway, Pack Rat's saying something I don't quite get, but that's because he's on a hollering because you have a tank full of hollow roast gives the energy to DJ the Homestead Happenings episodes. Ah, I see why now. Because I'm hyper. So yeah, that's everything for harvest meals. I'm gonna do my first round of canning this weekend, and I don't know exactly what I'll be canning, but I haven't canned. I was gonna do pickled beets, and then I needed to fly to California, and they didn't get pickled. And then I got a borscht recipe from Sunny Puzika's, which we're totally gonna try, and it sounds delicious. Do you know what borscht is?
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, that is what it is. Ernie says the deer ate all of my tomato plants this year, along with everything else. I live in East Tennessee. You should get bone sauce from Billy Bond at Perma Pastures Farm. It looks expensive when you buy it, but when you think that it keeps the deer away, it's less expensive, and you don't need a lot of it. So he makes a really cool product. If you're going to put it out where you never want to see deer again. That's the important thing. So don't put it near your favorite hunting spot. Or fence.
Healer.
Huh?
Or you could just get a blue healer mix and you'll never see a deer.
I have a fence around my garden, so I have seen deer on the property.
That's like the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, I drove back from the pasture the other day, and there was a deer in my food forest who decided she would go through the gate to Nighthawks as soon as the 4-wheeler came. I was like, do you know where you are? You know, it's like when somebody walks in the wrong neighborhood. It's like, do you know where you are? But his dog was not outside for that one. But, our plants are fenced, and I may end up having to do something for the raised beds we're putting in. We'll see. Because literally, she would have been right where the raised beds are. But, yeah, it's a bummer when deer get in and decimate stuff.
But I also there's a lot of deer about right now, and I don't know if it's just that people aren't hunting as much, but you go up to the pasture and like there will be 5-6 deer standing there staring at you.
Yeah,
there's a lot of babies over there right now. And
any 10-point racks?
No, but there's a couple they got their horns growing back.
Cool.
We'll see.
So today I got a text message from somebody named Steve, not Steve Eversole. And he said, I have too many tomatoes. Would you trade, they're organic. Would you trade duck eggs for them? And I said, I had to think for a minute. I'm like, Steve. And without knowing who it was, I was like, yeah, as long as you're willing to take duck futures, I will totally take that trade. But my ducks are molting. And then he wrote back and I'm like, oh, that's Steve. Like 2 doors down the holler, which is like half a mile away. Half a mile away, Steve, who also has a garden, has tomatoes. And he's like, yeah, sure. He needs to went LOL. And he's like, how many do you want? How ripe do you want them? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, as many as you don't want. If you give them to me, I will can them because I'm canning this weekend. So hopefully I'm canning tomatoes. If it's not a ton of tomatoes, though, we're going to be eating them fresh.
Okay.
But in other news, do you know what happened on my tomato wall?
First ripe one.
It's not ripe yet, but it's gonna be. It finally turned. It was not the one I thought was gonna go, but that heralds the season of too many tomatoes, which is not really a thing for me because too many tomatoes just means salsa, tomato sauce, stewed tomatoes.
Yeah.
Tomato soup, fresh tomato soup with the basil coming off the garden is delicious.
Yeah.
Right. So
Agreed.
also, Ernie, you have a deer garden, not a garden. So that is Pack Rat's point. Madam Deer, you're on the menu, right? So in hunting season, if you just keep putting stuff out in your garden that the deer want to eat, there is always that approach, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know deer would eat tomatoes.
I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they'd taste good to a ruminant. Pepper plants, I know they'll eat because I've had somebody else here had theirs decimated by something, but I've had sheep get out and eat my, like, one time the goat got out and I'm walking her by the aquaponic system and she like whipped her head over and ate half of a pepper plant. But the sheep have also gotten into my pepper plants before.
Yeah.
So everything likes pepper plants, apparently. So that was my great holler neighbor / community story, was that text message. I'm always happy to trade for things I can, including canned goods when I'm home to can them. And it looks like I'll be home the whole weekend. 2 days back to back on a weekend.
That's impressive.
Yeah, which means I have 1 day to do Homestead stuff, and then I roast a bunch of coffee tomorrow because I usually roast on Sunday to ship on Monday. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. And then Monday's way better if I do that. I also go swimming laps, and as long as we don't get a stupid thunderstorm tomorrow, I'm swimming. I mean, Sunday, I'm swimming laps. And this year, every time I want to swim, lightning is near the pool, and they won't let you swim in the pool if there's lightning near the pool. So I've missed a lot of swimming this year.
Yeah.
It's been like literally like nothing Sunday afternoon. I'm like,
probably gonna happen again this week.
Yeah, I might just ditch you after we have the vet and go swim laps today.
Okay.
Because I could always do whatever it was I was going to do for marketing this afternoon on Sunday. That's how I plan my time, guys. It's like I have benchmarks I got to hit. Okay, next up is infrastructure. How's your pond holding up to the rain? We had a rain event that was a lot of rain. Did the dam break?
No, I was actually really happy to see that nothing got washed out, and it looks like with the amount of rain that we got that there wasn't anything flowing where it wasn't supposed to go, which means the 2 3-inch PVC pipes kept up with everything. I still plan on putting in, some additional overflow pipes, but that was all a good sign. And I'm almost done with a couple of other sections that will then allow everything to be graded off, and we'll kind of have a couple of terraces that are easy to walk across and a lot easier to maintain, so that they grow something besides weeds and perla.
Cool.
Hopefully actually start getting some grass in there.
Yeah, so the idea with the pond is it is a grazing area, and my thingy went out. There we go. The backlight went away. It's where sheep go to graze, and so it'd be nice to have more things for them to graze on. We do grow fodder trees down there as well, so that's nice. And then my next question is, how much more time till my other tomato wall's done?
That depends on how many projects we keep adding to the list.
But isn't that a great poke at it while it's raining sort of project?
The last rain we got, there was no poking at anything. It was just sit outside and enjoy the weather.
So if we get the tomato wall in, I can have fall tomatoes on that one.
Okay.
He doesn't have anything else to say. He's just staring at me back.
Okay.
He's giving me the cool story, bro. Look. Well, we're on to our last segment. If you guys have questions about homesteading or the Holler Homestead in particular, now is a good time to get that going. But we're on to the finances part of the show, where we talk about how we're making all sorts of money by being homesteaders. That's actually not true. We're not making all sorts of money by being homesteaders here. What we do, though, is reduce the need to buy things, which does help with the big picture budget. But we also are tapping into agriculture, agritourism, I guess is what people call it, where people want to come, stay on a homestead or whatever. And we had hip campers come in this week, and that brought in about $80. So not a ton of money, but it was $80 for somebody to camp on my property and use the things that are already here, like the composting outhouse and the outdoor shower and all of those things. And so it's sort of a low skin off my neck sort of thing to get that done. The only thing that was surprising to me was that we had hip campers in July, because we don't usually have hip campers in July because it's hot here. And it was over 100 degrees during the day. So we got to know them. And here's what they did that was pretty cool. They have a hybrid vehicle, so they can sleep in their vehicle with the air conditioning on, and it's super quiet. And it just it pops on when the battery gets low and recharges the battery. And they said, whenever we're camping, we'll sleep in the tent, but if it's going to be hot and gross, then we stay in the car at night. And they set up like a whole campsite where they hung out and, talked and whatever into the evening. Because at nighttime, it's actually pretty pleasant out here right now, most of the time. And then when they wanted to go to sleep, they slept in the car, and they were really delightful to have as guests. But I also learned a ton about different ways to car camp, like different things you can do to a car if you're going to be out and about and sort of wanting a little bit more of the, sort of the luxury of not being too hot at night. Because I don't love camping when it's hot and humid. Like fall is a great time for camping. Middle of July, I really like air conditioning. I like to sleep at night. I sleep better, cooler. Most people do. And so it was kind of cool to see how they got all set up. And they said we'll do Airbnbs for a night or two, and then we'll camp for a while, and then we'll do Airbnbs. And that's how they travel around. So that was pretty cool. That brought in $80 this week, which, is not $80 million, but it's $80 we didn't have before. And it's $80 that can be used for more fencing supplies or whatever. So that was fun. Anyway, that is the end of the updates from the homestead this week. If you like the show, want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. And two, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. I also want to remind you that next week on Friday at 7 p.m., we start the Learning from Legends webinar series for Self-Reliance Festival. And that is 4 nights back to back, 7 o'clock, with replays of sessions that were really good at Self-Reliance Festival. Plus, we're emceeing it, so we have people on. You'll be able to ask questions or discuss the topics afterwards. There'll be some free giveaways. Check that out at selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. Get signed up, because you can watch the recordings for a couple of weeks after that, and then they go away. So check that out, selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. Make it a great week, guys. Except for my mouse isn't here. So we're going to say make it a great week again. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. Make it a great week.